Forget your titanium flashlights, carbon fiber knives, and solar-powered gizmos for a moment. Because more than 100 years ago, long before GPS, Wi-Fi, and fancy multi-tools, soldiers fighting in the mud-soaked chaos of World War II were surviving with gear that was brutally simple, endlessly reliable, and honestly, decades ahead of its time. These weren't just tools, they were lifelines. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. Much of what they carried still works better than our so-called high-tech modern gear today. This is wisdom from the Frontlines, where we uncover the forgotten genius of real survival, the kind that doesn't need batteries, Bluetooth, or backup power. Let's step into the trenches and see why the soldiers of World War II may have known more about survival than we do in 2025. Modern prepping culture loves gadgets. Everyone's got a multi-tool with 20 attachments, a flashlight that charges via USB, and a knife with a compass built into the handle. But soldiers of World War II didn't have that luxury, or the time for it. Their survival kits were stripped down to essentials. No showpieces, no fluff, just pure function. Their philosophy was simple. If it couldn't take a beating in the mud, it didn't belong in the pack. Every single item served multiple purposes. A small metal tin wasn't just a container. It was a cooking pot, a sterilizer, and a drinking cup. That same tin could even reflect light for signaling or boil water over an open flame. Modern gear looks sleek, sure, but it's also fragile. Those soldiers, they carried gear designed to take punishment and keep going. Let's start with, honestly, the most underestimated item of all, the tin box. Inside it were the soldiers' essentials: needles, matches, bits of wire, string, and sometimes a folding knife. But the real magic wasn't just what was inside, it was the tin itself. Soldiers used it to cook rations, boil muddy water into something drinkable, and even heat small pieces of metal for makeshift repairs. When you're deep in a war zone, you just don't have access to spare parts or electricity. So they used creativity instead of convenience. Need to sterilize a blade? Boil it in the tin. Need to start a fire? The reflective lid doubled as a signal mirror. These days, preppers spend hundreds of dollars chasing that kind of multifunctionality. Back then, it came standard issue. We all love a good multi-tool, but here's the truth. The soldiers of World War II were rocking multi-tools long before it was trendy. Compact folding knives back then were, honestly, engineering masterpieces in their own right. These weren't luxury accessories. They were survival companions built to work in freezing rain, mud, or snow. A single knife often came with a can opener, a screwdriver, and an awl. Simple, effective, and unbreakable. You could fix a rifle, open a ration can, or build a small shelter using that one piece of steel. No gimmicks, no interchangeable bits, just precision forged for endurance. That's the kind of durability today's everyday carry industry keeps trying, and honestly, failing to recreate. Now let's talk about fire, the difference between warmth and hypothermia, between survival and surrender. The soldiers' trench lighters were the definition of reliability, refillable, and windproof, and often made from spent bullet casings. These lighters worked in the worst conditions imaginable. When rain poured and mud swallowed everything, these little contraptions still sparked. Some of the original designs are so efficient that bushcraft experts today rebuild and use them. You can refill them endlessly, repair them on the spot, and they don't rely on a power socket to function. Compare that to a disposable lighter that quits after a few uses, or an electric plasma lighter that dies when the battery does. The soldiers didn't just make fire, they made reliability. But here's where the real genius comes in. The power of these kits wasn't just in their tools, it was in the mindset of the people who used them. World War II soldiers weren't just equipped to survive, they were trained to adapt. Every man in the trenches became an inventor, a problem solver, a survivalist by necessity. They could fix gear with wire stitch wounds with needles meant for cloth and build cooking setups from discarded ration tins. They didn't wait for rescue. They became their own engineers. Their strength came not from what they carried, but from how they thought. That's the piece modern survival often misses. We rely on convenience. Power banks, solar lanterns, rechargeable everything. But what happens when the lights go out for good? A World War II soldier would shrug and get to work, because survival wasn't about tools. It was about attitude. So, what's the lesson here for the modern prepper, the camper, or just anyone trying to be a little more self-reliant? It's that survival doesn't come from having more stuff. It comes from having smarter stuff. The first principle is practicality. Those soldiers didn't care how something looked, only that it worked. The second is simplicity. The fewer things that could break, the longer they could last. And finally, versatility. One tool that can do 5 jobs will always beat 5 tools that can only do 1. This mindset wasn't born from luxury. It came from necessity, and that's exactly why it worked. Even in 2025, when our backpacks are stuffed with tech, those century-old principles still define what true preparedness means. The soldiers of World War II carried more than weapons. They carried wisdom. Their gear represented the ultimate blend of ingenuity and resilience. Every piece told a story of endurance, creativity, and grit. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't high-tech, but it was real, and it worked. Modern survivalists could learn a lot from that. When you strip away the excess, what's left is what truly matters: durability, resourcefulness, and knowledge. Because at the end of the day, when the world goes dark, your survival won't depend on your latest gadget. It'll depend on your ability to adapt, repair, and overcome. So next time you show off your latest gear setup, remember this: those soldiers did more with less. They didn't have power banks or designer backpacks, yet they survived one of the harshest environments humanity has ever seen. Maybe we don't need more gear. Maybe we just need the same mindset they had: grit, creativity, and simplicity. If this story opened your eyes to the forgotten brilliance of World War II survival, don't just scroll away. Hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who loves real history and real preparedness. Because here on Wisdom from the Frontlines, we're not just remembering the past, we're bringing its lessons back to life.